Cloudcast Media.
Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media, and I gotta tell you, always good to see this wonderful woman's presence in our studio. She's been on many, many times, always given just phenomenal content on this great organization she's involved in. That is Laura Tancredi-Baese. And I was going to call you Count Basie because you told me to say that's how you pronounce that name. And of course, I've known you for quite a while. How long have you been with the organization now?
It's been about 15 fantastic years.
My goodness. CEO of Homestart. What's the mission?
Our mission is to assure the safety and the resiliency of children, and we do that by strengthening families and communities.
Right. So is this your 50th anniversary?
This is our 50th anniversary year, yes. And neither Mark and I were there in the beginning, however.
I know you weren't in the beginning, and we joined as Mark Lagace is the Director of Philanthropy. How long have you been with the organization?
I've been there 6 years, Drew.
6 years. Listen, you folks have impacted so many lives and over the years. And one of the things we always talk about, Laura, and you can always jump in on this too, Mark, it's not just the person that has, been facing some very difficulty. It's that person's family members. It's that person's friends, relatives. Talk about that circle just expands when you help one person.
Well, I think you have to view individuals, as part of a holistic system, right? And so who else do they have in their world that can be a support to them? And it's not always relatives, right? It's not always blood relatives, but who do they have in their life that they can count on? And I think when you're thinking about healing and sort of some of the work that we do, real lasting supportive relationships are really key to everybody's well-being.
Right, and in the space you're in, which is some pretty difficult situations for, kids and families, is that number growing of people that are in need of your services? Is it slowing down? Is it going down?
Well, we provide services in about 7 different areas.
I know
so
you do.
I think you have to know that the trauma of the pandemic affected a lot of people. It was,
sure did.
We hear this word is unprecedented, and none of us were prepared for it. And so our families and our individuals who are lower income, who are on the edge of poverty, many times that really pushed them
over the edge.
And so we provided a lot of emergency services, over $2.6 million of rental assistance, utility assistance for families, individuals impacted by COVID, so they could stay housed and they could stay, have food that was eatable and cookable and could live their lives during this crisis.
Did you work with the food bank at all?
We did a bit, and we still do with some diapers,
Right, yeah, no, that's right. They've gotten into the diapers and all that.
Lucky Duck Foundation is another food partner as well as an ongoing supporter too.
No, they're the best. Drew Moser, my namesake, so to speak.
That's right.
Just done a great job. And that whole organization focused on, the homeless and people in need and so forth. They did a big article in the paper on them recently, and well deserved in that aspect of it. So Mark, you in charge of philanthropy. You're working with certainly individuals. You're working with businesses. How much of your funding comes from grants, or is that not part of it?
Well, we have about 80 to 85% is the government grants, but as Laura and I always have to explain, those never go quite far enough.
Right.
And there's extra to go above and beyond and provide all the excellent services and care we offer. We need to have our corporate, private, and philanthropic friends join us, which is why I love getting to do what I do. Laura and I are always just going out, enjoying opportunities like this to share our story.
Yeah, you can't really share it enough. And we all know that those, families and those kids and those people that are in need, listen, we all know there's a big push around from Thanksgiving through the end of the year. But hunger doesn't know a date. Domestic abuse doesn't know a date. And you guys know that because you guys work 7/24, 365, and 366 when we have those special every 4 years in that aspect as well. You have one of my favorite events coming up on the 22nd of October. I'll let you start with that, and then we'll tee it over to Mark. Talk about that cool event.
All right. Well, we have two big events every year, and this is our Hallo-Wine, and we've been doing it for a long time. It's a Saturday 3 to 6 p.m. event, and it raises really important funds for our programs, especially addressing domestic violence, because October is National Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and it is an issue that is not going away, and we have actually added additional services around that focus area because it is not going away. So really serious issue, but the event is very fun and uplifting. So I'll let Mark talk about the event itself.
Sure. Thanks, Laura. Yeah, as Laura said, it's a outdoor fall festival. Laura started about, shortly after you got to Homestart. And the model is a taste of, so different sips and bites of local food vendors, beverage vendors, catering vendors. And it's just really a fun and meaningful. I always add the word meaningful because as important as to have fun, it's also important to recognize that this is indeed in recognition of domestic violence awareness, as Laura said. We have a brave young woman typically share her story, which is can be very hard, but also empowering. Sometimes they find empowerment in sharing their story. So we have some games and activities. We have a barrel club that's new this year in honor of our 50th anniversary. It's a extra special ticket with a wine and sommelier and food pairing demonstration. So lots of fun ahead.
It's going to be on the 22nd of October from 3 to 6 in the Historic Burnham House in Balboa Park. And I can tell you from experience, it's a great event. It's fun. It raises good funds for Homestart, but even more importantly, just raises the awareness of domestic violence. It's not going away, as Laura said. The pandemic exacerbated it. Probably quite a bit, multiples on that aspect. And it's just great to let people know what is there, what you folks do, and it's great. I looked at my schedule, and I do have something also on that date, but I think I can sneak out a little bit early and try to get there at 3 o'clock when it starts, if I'm so invited and all that. No, it is
Jimmy Buffett's rescheduled if it was a Jimmy Buffett concert.
No, it was USO was having a big shindig, but that's not till later. So I think I can try to squeeze two of these in. No, it's a great event to do. We are chatting with Laura Tancredi-Baese. She's the CEO of Homestart, joined by her Director of Philanthropy, Mark Lagace. I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media. We're here in the beautiful Mission-Fed studios here at their headquarters right in Scripps Ranch, and we're just honored to be a partner with Mission-Fed on our Spotlight on the Community shows. Laura, I've been doing this now, and I bet you must have been one of their early guests since 2007. And
I think I remember being an early guest.
Right, exactly. I think you had just started in that area. I want to go back to you've talked about this before on the show, but I don't think we can talk about it enough. And I'm pretty sure it's on your website, and you can jump in on this as well, Mark. For people to look at the signs of domestic, violence and abuse and all that, talk about some of those.
Well, it takes different forms, right?
Right.
So I think there's the obvious signs of physical bruises and marks and welts and burns and things like that. But there's also, the less visible signs of the psychological abuse and the emotional abuse that happens. In fact, I was speaking with one of the young women in our housing program, and I said, have you ever experienced domestic violence? And she said, oh, no. And we talked about it some more. She goes, oh, but there's a report on my child when I took her to the hospital. I said, well, what do you mean? She said, well, her father was there in the hospital, and he got really angry, and he grabbed me by the neck and pulled my necklace. And so the nurses put that in the report and made him leave. And I said, so you don't think that was domestic violence? And she goes, well, I never filed a report, and I didn't file a restraining order. So in her mind, domestic violence was something that, you involve the police and the authorities. And so we talked some more about that, and she finally started to understand, that very painful relationship she was in was domestic violence.
You make a good point. We talk about it quite a bit since you've been on. And right, it takes many, many facets. You don't have to physically abuse someone to have domestic violence. You can, yell and scream, or you don't have to yell and scream. You can take the checkbook away, and that's it. And now, guess what? You can't do anything because I have the checkbook, or I'm going to let you sign papers and all that. And it manifests itself so much. And listen, we know it's not 100% men on women,
right,
but it's the overwhelming majority, not even close if I'm not mistaken on this. So when you, Mark, I'll start with you on this one, and we'll transition over to Laura, and then we'll continue when we come back from break. Talk about some of the programs and services you folks offer.
Sure. Well, what I like to think of, especially with domestic violence, is that word empowering again. It takes an average of 7 times for a woman to successfully leave her abuser, unfortunately. Wow. But just the other day, we had an example of a brave young woman, and she finally struck up the courage to leave, and she was trying to hide in her trailer in East County, and her abuser found her and burned the trailer down. And thank goodness she was able to escape. She wasn't harmed, and she had right around that time she'd reached out to our staff, and we got her a motel that same night, got her the help. So you got to think in terms of immediate needs and then short and long term. So it's not an easy button for helping our victims or survivors. We like to use the word survivors of domestic violence, but getting them off the streets first and foremost. Then they've moved into our new housing units on 35th Street, which we opened this summer. And then we're working, they come up with the plan with their case manager for how they're going to support themselves and their children and build a brighter future. So it's a process.
And that's an extreme one. Trying to burn someone down and kill them and stuff like that. But as you mentioned, Laura, it manifests itself in so many other things. Mm-hmm. Is there a percentage of how many people that would qualify for having had domestic abuse against them is available? The example you used, that young woman didn't consider that domestic abuse because the police weren't involved. Mm-hmm. Well, of course, it's domestic abuse because they went to grab her necklace. How many people do you think are victims of it? That just, by how you define domestic abuse, mm-hmm. It's got to be a huge percentage, doesn't it?
I think there is a huge percentage, and it depends on, different factors, but it affects every demographic. Certainly every demographic are impacted by this. Families that seem to be very well-to-do and prominent, it happens in those families as well. And so it can happen everywhere. So I think the important thing is never make assumptions. It doesn't have to mean burning down a trailer. It could be really subtle things that eat away at somebody's confidence and their belief in themselves, and being called stupid. Maybe, and I've heard those kind of stories. He never quite put a hand on her, but he was always telling her how stupid she was and how unable she was to do anything. And the control factor, right? Like kept all the money, dictated where she could go and when, didn't allow her to have a car. So there's a lot of ways that this takes place. And so you can't make assumptions, and you can't belittle something that's not as dramatic as starting a fire. It's out there. It has a cycle. There's a repetitive cycle. And even sometimes they say it takes someone 7 times to actually leave and leave permanently.
Well, when we come back from break, we're going to continue the conversation with Laura Tancredi-Baese. She's the CEO of Homestar, joined by her Director of Philanthropy, Mark Lagace. When I come back from break, we're going to talk about what family members should look for if they think there is some domestic abuse going on. Where can they turn to? How do they turn to do that? How they do those types of things? Because that's just as important. When we come back for another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community, brought to you by Cloudcast Media and Mission Fed Credit Union, who have been doing spectacular things for San Diegans for more than 60 years. We will be right back.
When you do your banking with Mission Fed, you get great rates on auto and home loans. That's good for you, but something good also happens for a lot of other people. We're not for profit, so we put money back into the community to help lots of great nonprofits to keep San Diego strong. So you're not just getting something good, you're doing something good. Come to Mission Fed. It's banking that's good for all.
Brand amplification is the DNA of Cloudcast Media, and our code is the powerful blending of sound, voice, and storytelling to lift local brands and their communities. Whether it is our Brandcast, Schoolcast, or Causecast platforms, the unifying ethos is all about this community, the one you call home. If you dare to dream and want to explore the brand amplification of Cloudcast, a national leader in local podcasting and other Winfluence strategies, please visit us at cloudcast.us.
I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media, and you've been listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union here in the beautiful Mission Fed studios in Scripps Ranch, chatting with our good friends from Homestar, Laura Tancredi-Baese, the CEO, joined by his Director of Philanthropy, Mark Lagace. And right before break, Mark and Laura, we're just talking about here some of the things you need to be looking for. Okay, now you are a family member, friend or whatever. Laura, start with this, and Mark, you jump in too. Do not stand on the sidelines and do nothing.
Exactly. And don't jump in the middle of it either if you're not comfortable doing that. But yes, speak up, say something, do something. 911 is also available. Sometimes you might hear something from a neighbor's house. If you're worried, then get on the phone and call for help. But I remember thinking a few times when I was observing someone in a store, and it was a parent and how they were talking to their child and grabbing them by the arm. Like, I just really wanted to say something, but it was like, how do I say something? And so it's tricky, but
What'd you do?
I just said, I tried to talk to the child. It was a younger child. And I said, look at you. You look really nice today. And just distract the parent from what she was doing. And I think, it's disturbing to just stand on the sidelines. You don't want to read something in the paper later that tells you something terrible or tragic happened. So speak up. If not comfortable to that individual, go get some help, pick up the phone. We believe that peace is deserved by everyone. Everyone deserves to be treated with respect and kindness.
Yeah. And Mark, how closely do you work with, like the district attorney or with law enforcement when some of these things pop up?
Yeah, well, we have staff that work very closely with the Child Welfare Services team, and they go in and do a lot of that liaison. And some of our staff members have shared that they'll accompany our clients to court, which can be very overwhelming and frightening for anybody, let alone if someone who's been through a domestic violence situation. So they'll work as a team. We do a lot of collaboration with the law enforcement and other agencies to just really provide the services needed. So I'd say we're partners right alongside them. The district attorney and her office are very, adamant about making sure that we address this issue.
Yeah, we've had Summer Stephan on and Bonnie DeMonis, and probably maybe when you were on, Laura, Sheriff Bill Gore, and I think even Bill Collender when Bill was around. And what I loved about when they came on, they made no bones about it. You can rest assured if you do anything that's going to harm someone in the home, you will be arrested and you will be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. And if you don't think so, don't even think about trying it. And I think that's a really important message that has to be, stated. Listen, the ultimate goal is to get people to break this cycle of violence. You and I have talked about it for a long time.
Yeah.
If someone has seen some of this, Laura, is there like an anonymous number they can call? Obviously, they can call 911, but is there a domestic abuse hotline?
I believe there is a DV hotline number.
Yeah.
There's also a child abuse hotline number. So
Right. Yeah.
I think it depends on the circumstances. So if there is ever a child involved, call Child Protective Services, because witnessing domestic violence is very, very harmful to children, even if they don't see it, if they are hearing it and, cowering in a closet while they hear the violence in the next room. It's very harmful to children. So any child ever involved, called Child Protective Services. There are domestic violence hotline numbers here in San Diego, and I think Mark's just found that number.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure I had it correct. There's the National Domestic Violence Hotline, and I'll get the local one shortly, 800-799-6999. 800-799-7233. That's 800-799-7233. And I think an important point, Drew, that Laura mentioned is sometimes, especially our survivors in the moment, don't think they're actual victims. And
That's right.
I think we just all need to be open and encouraging to say, if you're not sure, don't hesitate. Don't just assume, well, that's something happens to other people, not me. Like, so what if he grabbed me? And that's not domestic violence. If you even have that little inkling of doubt, just call and talk to someone and take that first step, because that could be the difference for you and your child.
Yeah, and I think that's such great advice. When we used to have on my good friend Shelley Zimmerman, former police chief, even when she was an assistant police chief, she would beg citizens, please help us by not being a victim. Do we not be searching through your keys in the parking lot when you're late at night, and why are you leaving the windows open, for God's sake? Yes, it's 140 degrees outside. Are you kidding? So give us a break. And probably the same thing here, Laura and Mark as well, is the fact that, listen, help us be able to at least make some dents in this program. Without question. So I know you guys are trying to call up that number, but
I did find the local one. If you want me to share that one, Drew,
please, Mark.
So the local one, the San Diego Domestic Violence Hotline, I'm on the San Diego City Police website, is 888-385-4657. That's 888-385-4657. And again, these folks are trained to ask the right questions, and just don't be afraid to reach out.
Right. So the Hallo-Wine Fall Festival is the 15th annual, October 22nd, from 3 to 6 at the Historic Burnham House in Balboa Park. It is a great event. It is fun, doing great things for a home start. What's the website? How do they get tickets to this?
I'll let Mark do that.
Sure. It's www.hallowine.org. That's Hallo-Wine, HALLOWINE.org. The early bird tickets are completely sold out, so tickets are selling fast. We have a limited number of the Barrel Club available.
I thought we still had some VIP tickets.
Nope, those sold out yesterday.
They did. Okay, great.
Oh my
they're
goodness.
they're flying off the shelves. So got to get them fast. And but again, all proceeds support these amazing families and children. And a lot of times people don't know what to do. They wish they can't necessarily go on a police visit and help, but they can come to an event like this, educate themselves, and raise funds to do something.
That's a great event, and you guys have a great organization. And I know, Laura, I was asked this to you. Don't want to break any laws and confidentiality and all that. But if there's a family that has benefited from your services, of what you have, would love to have them come on with you next time.
Okay.
Because that's the street cred. I think you need a bunch of it. You guys got a long list of great metrics of what you've done, but when you bring those families, that'd be great.
Well, I did get to speak last night with a particularly amazing young woman at a golf tournament benefit, and she said she'll speak with me again. So
consider that done deal.
All right.
So just reach out to me. You know how to get a hold of me and so forth, and we'll get you on sooner than later in that aspect of it. Mark, I got about a minute or so to go. Any final comments?
No, just thank you, Drew, for helping us spread the word. And I love how, Homestart and all of our partners and you were breaking the cycle. We talked about that earlier, but little AJ and some of the other kids I've gotten to see on tours and visits, they're going to be the last one and their first ones to not be in that situation. So one family, one child at a time. Yeah,
from your lips, absolutely. And Laura, any final comments?
Our tagline is strengthening families, protects children. So we're all a part of that. And thank you, Drew, for your years of support. And we look forward to seeing many of your listeners at Hallo-Wine.
Absolutely. My name is Drew Schlosberg, and you've been listening to Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show on Cloudcast Media, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, doing spectacular things for San Diegans for 60 years. Had another great conversation with our friends from Homestart, Laura Tancredi-Baese, the CEO, and our Director of Philanthropy, Mark Lagace. Hope you enjoyed the show, and we will have them back on sooner than later.
You've been listening to an episode of Drew Schlosberg's Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego community. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
Cloudcast Media.